Howdy folks, and welcome to another Salient BPM technical tutorial. In this edition, what we're going to talk about is a puzzle that was again presented to me today that I had to solve. And the puzzle was, we had a coach, and on the coach there was a user ID and a password field. Great, no problem there. And there was an add button. So once I'd entered my user ID and password, I would click the add button and my user ID password would be added. So let's play this, let's run it and see what it looks like. There's what it looks like. Here's my user ID, here's my password. Let me enter some data for a user ID. Let me not enter data for a password. Let me hit the add button and the service is completed. Well, that's no good. What I want is that I can only submit this coach once there is valid data in both fields. So this is an instance of an example of data validation, something in the user interface that is technically and mechanically preventing me from not making progress, but from making inadvertent accidental mistakes. I don't want to be able to create an entry without adding both a user ID and a password. So let's go have a look and let's look at the solution and let's run the solution, and then I'll take you through how it works. So here I'm running my new coach, and notice the add button is disabled. If I click on it, nothing happens. If I enter a user ID, still nothing happens. If I enter a password, now the button becomes eligible for entry. If I delete the user ID, nope, no longer eligible. So I have to have both a user ID and a password for the add to be able to be clicked. So that's great. Now, how did I do it? Well, the way it's done is to realize that both the user ID and the password text input fields have events associated with them. And one of those events is called onInput. And when text is entered into the corresponding control, the onInput callback event handler is itself driven. And here we can enter JavaScript that will be executed when data is supplied in the text input fields. So what I want to do is one of the coach views is called add, and this has a control ID called add button. Now what that means is that when I enter text in one of my text input controls, I want to set the enabled status of the add button to be true or false. And I want it to be true if the length of the newly entered text is greater than 0, i.e. there is some text, and in this case that the length of the text of the user ID field is also greater than 0. So if both of those are true, the whole expression will be true and will be enabled. If either of these are false, the expression will be false and the button will be disabled. So for the password, I check my input potential length and the user ID length, and if they are both greater than 0, we're enabled. For the user ID field, it's very similar. For the add button, we set it enabled if my user ID text is greater than 0 and the password text length is greater than 0. And that's it. Now you can imagine this being expanded to multiple other fields. You could even place this into a function and have the function be genericized, if that's a good word, genericized to be the same function called for both events here, for both event handlers. However, this is nice, straightforward, and easy. One last thing I had to do was when the button was first loaded, I had to set it initially to disabled. Otherwise, the button would be started off as enabled and would allow me to click it when nothing had been entered in either text input field. So again, what we end up with is a coach which enables or disables buttons, and it could be other components, as a function of the entered data. A nice, simple, very straightforward technique, but I've come across this a couple of times now, and I thought I'd record it so that if anybody needs something similar again, here's a quick tutorial illustrating at least one way that we can achieve this. Looking forward to making more videos in the future, folks. Bye for now.